Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to watch America's massive military airplane that is named after a porn star. Why would you do that? Like, why would you name your airplane, one of the biggest things that you have made, after a porn star? Like, either it could be a publicity stunt or it could be just like they knew that this is something very naughty and we should name it something very naughty. And also, I think so because, like, normally about all these planes and fighter jets, normal public do not care about it. So when you name it after a porn star, they'll be like, oh, who is that porn star? So I think so that is the same curiosity that I have, and I'm damn sure I'm not going to search about the name of the porn star after watching this video, but I would really want to know who that porn star is.
Seriously, I also got shocked, very shocked when I read the title and it was like that the aeroplane that is named after a porn star, and I was same. My question was same like that. Why would America do such kinds of the thing? And I have never heard like that some country name the aeroplane after a porn star. So that is the very weird thing for me. Maybe that porn star is a, maybe it could be like that. Maybe that porn star would be so good, has done a lot of thing for the America. It could be like that. We should not judge that he is a porn star or he or she is a just porn star, that he has basically the America has done wrong. We should not judge like that, but we should also look on the other on the other side of the story. Maybe it could be happened that that porn star has done a lot of things for the America, and maybe they served in the America army. It could be happen. So yeah, these all are confusion gonna be solved after watching this video. So yeah, I'm so much excited to watch this video, and I hope this video would not be hilarious for me. So yeah, let's watch this video.
Yes, and if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe the channel. So let's watch this video.
Meet Fred, the largest strategic airlifter in the United States Air Force.
Ooh.
And Fred is a weird one, with many unique features that boggles your mind.
Fred!
Like the 90-degree rotating landing gear, the fact that it can kneel down, the ability to travel in reverse, yes, in reverse, and its strange passenger deck with seats that face backward toward the rear of the airplane. Being a strategic airlifter, Fred can transport anything, be it submarines, trucks, or intercontinental ballistic missiles. Except for one thing, which would have looked so cool on Fred's resume. But it's not what you think.
He looks like
Now you're
a
probably
shark.
curious who this Fred is.
Yes.
Well, Fred is the nickname for Lockheed's C-5 Galaxy transport aircraft. I just couldn't say earlier what Fred stands for, because YouTube doesn't like profanity during the first 30 seconds of a video. But since we're in the clear now, meet Fred. Ridiculous economic disaster.
Huh?
The C-5 Galaxy got this nickname because of the enormous cost overruns during the development of the aircraft, which was due to the ever-changing capability requirements by the US Air Force. But aside from Fred, the Lockheed C-5 Galaxy has other nicknames, like Big Mac,
Big Mac.
Cumulus Illuminus, and Linda Lovelace.
Linda
I see
Lovelace?
some of you who are lucky teenagers in the 70s recognize that name. Linda Lovelace was an American actress who specialized in adult films.
Oh.
The
she
C-5
looks
Galaxy
nice.
can kneel and take huge loads from both ends, and that reminded some people of a late actress. So before we get into the unique features,
This is awesome. So that's why, because it can take in loads from both ends, so you have named it after a porn star. Wow. Nice technique, bro. And like at first I was like, why Fred is not sounding like a porn star name, but then he named, okay, so it is Linda, and like she looks nice, and like, okay, it is worth searching for after watching this video.
of the C-5 Galaxy, you should probably know about Fred's relationship with Boeing 747. Spoiler alert, the 747 can do some stuff that Fred couldn't.
Oh.
During the 1960s, Lockheed, Douglas, and Boeing competed to design a new large military aircraft, the C-5 Galaxy. While the US Air Force considered the Boeing design to be superior to that of Lockheed, Boeing lost the competition to Lockheed's less expensive design.
Oh.
But don't feel bad for Boeing, because they went on to develop the highly successful Boeing 747 civilian airplane, which took advantage of the high bypass engine technology that they had developed for the C-5A.
Wow.
While there are lots of speculations that Boeing 747 came out of the C-5 program, it appears not to be the case, as Boeing's C-5 design differed quite a bit from that of the Boeing 747. But enough with history. Let's shift gears and go in reverse. just like Fred can. But there's a problem. While the C5 can travel backwards on the ground using reverse thrusters, it doesn't have a backup camera like today's cars do. The solution is to open the rear cargo door, where a spotter would sit. All it takes is to advance the throttles off of the idle just a little bit on the reverse thrusters for Fred to move backwards.
Oh, why don't they
And there is
install
no
a camera?
beeping when going backwards, like you hear on trucks and bigger vehicles.
Vibe like a
But the
shark.
truth is, many aircraft can back up on their own thrusters, be it an old Saab 37 Viggen or military transport aircraft like the C-17 Globemaster or an older C-130 Hercules. Similarly to military aircraft, commercial jets like the DC-9 can also travel backwards using reverse thrusters, but they almost never do.
Why?
See, reverse thrusters are most commonly used during landing to decelerate a fast-moving aircraft by reversing the direction of thrust. With a few exceptions, civilian aircraft are banned from using reverse thrusters to back up at airports.
Oh, why?
And that's why you typically see a small tug moving the aircraft out of the gate. The ban is mainly due to safety concerns, as the reverse thrust can stir up debris that can damage the engine or anyone nearby. Reverse thrust is also very loud and consumes fuel unnecessarily. In addition, new high-pass engines cannot safely use the reverse thrusters until they're already moving. Sounds like reverse thrusters can be pretty dangerous on the ground. But what would happen if you reverse the engine's thrust mid-flight?
No, 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 no. Never do that.
You may be surprised, but thrust reversers are routinely used mid-flight on the C5 Galaxy.
Really?
According to pilots, Fred's wings produce so much lift that the airplane doesn't want to come down from altitude. But with a little encouragement, by putting on thrust reverse on the two inbound engines, Fred descends quite quickly. In fact, reverse thrust can be used on many aircraft while in flight in order to speed up the rate of descent, which could reach between 10,000 feet to 18,000 feet per minute.
Oh, wow.
That's a
The
I never
C5
knew about
Galaxy
this.
can also carry passengers, since it has a 73 passenger deck above the cargo hold. But unlike commercial jets, the seats on this deck are facing backwards for one simple reason.
Why?
Back in the day, Lockheed discovered that rear-facing seats are actually safer for passengers compared to front-facing seats.
So change
That's
it.
because when aircraft come to a sudden stop, say during a crash, passengers can put their head and back against the seat, and the seat would absorb most of the destructive energy of a crash.
So this is
But
nice.
if it's safer, why don't commercial jets have backward seats?
Yes, yes, thank you.
According to one theory, it's because forward-facing seats are more profitable for airlines. Let me explain. Since backward seats need to be able to absorb the crash energy, they would have to take more strain from the passengers when compared to forward-facing seats. Therefore, the backward seats have to be reinforced to absorb this energy, which would make them heavier. Adding weight to aircraft means
This is so ridiculous. Like, just for profits, you are giving away the safety of people. This should have been a rule that, okay, you have to make planes like this so that. So what? Like, people are not going to be. Like just for some profits, you are going to like you have to make some better chairs and you know people complain about that even now that okay that chairs are not good, they are not comfortable. So just to make some better chairs, to better comfortable chairs, and also to protect them from all these things and crashes. Like okay, like if you ask any airline, they will say that there are not so many crashes happening and like it is a very very rarity and we cannot like do all these things for a rarity. But still I think so we have seen that there are very many situations that people go through a lot, and this is one of a horrific situation. So if you can save even one life by doing this, I think so they should do that.
But I
For
read
sure, they should
somewhere
go for
that backward facing seats are more safer rather than the normal seats. I don't know is it true or not, but I have read somewhere.
increased fuel consumption, which translates to less profit for the airline. So kudos to Lockheed for going backwards in the name of safety and providing some nice resting area for the crew of the C5, which includes bunk beds and a nice lounge area.
Wow.
The washroom is roomy as well. By the way, it's my dream to fly in the C5, so if you get connections, hook me up. While the C5 Galaxy is the largest cargo plane in the United States Air Force, it is not the largest in the world. The Ukrainian AN-225 Maria, which was destroyed by Russian forces, was able to carry 250 tons.
250
It's been
tons.
reported that a second Maria is now being worked on in a secret facility. Apparently, all the essential components for a second airframe had been previously manufactured. But with Maria gone, for now, the largest cargo airplane is the AN-124 Ruslan, which is able to carry 150 tons of cargo. The C-5 Galaxy, in comparison, can only carry 125 tons,
Only
which is still
125.
a lot, as it equates to 25,844,746 ping pong balls. But on a practical note, you can fit one CH-47 Chinook tandem rotor helicopter inside Fred's cargo bay,
Wow.
or you could fit 3 AH-64 Apache helicopters. For Tetris lovers, removing the rotor blades and stabilizers allows for fitting 6 Apache helicopters into the C-5. You could also fit one Coast Guard boat, or even a Mark V Special Operations boat. Even the fuselage of a C-130 would fit inside. The C-5 can also
Like after seeing this, I think so now I get it why it was named after a porn star, because it can fit in anything.
accommodate the transport of 10 light armored vehicles, weighing 12 tons each, or fit in 2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles. An A-10 Warthog would also fit,
Oh,
and
wow.
so would 36 standard pallets. After all, the C-5 is a strategic airlifter. Just to put things in perspective, during Operation Desert Storm, C-5 Galaxies only made up 12% of the combined airlift fleet, yet they carried 44% of all airlift cargo.
Wow, massive. Massive.
The US Air Force even managed to airdrop a Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile from the C-5 as they were conducting research to use the C-5 Galaxy as a platform to launch nuclear missiles.
Wow.
Upon the extraction of the load, the ICBM was released from its cradle, after which the Minuteman engines ignited, proving that you can launch ICBMs from airborne platforms. But what was that one thing
This will
that
be so
Fred
powerful.
couldn't carry?
One thing Fred couldn't carry.
That would be the space shuttle.
Or virginity.
If you're wondering why the Boeing 747 could transport the space shuttle, but not the C-5, it all came down to the tails. The C-5 has a T-tail, which would have been affected by the airflow turbulence created by the shuttle. It was the 747's regular tail that won the competition. But what's interesting is that even though the C-5 is capable of airlifting main battle tanks, they rarely do. Fred is capable of transporting 2 M1 Abrams tanks at the same time, but the US Air Force would rather not do that.
Why?
The first reason is that airlifting tanks is incredibly expensive and inefficient. A more efficient way of transporting tanks and even other armored vehicles over long distances is by rail or sea.
See.
As a result, tank airlifts are incredibly rare, but they have happened on occasion. The largest airlift of tanks using C-5 Galaxy happened in 1973 during the Arab-Israeli War, when Israeli forces suffered heavy losses and needed to be resupplied by the United States. The US government sent 29 M60A1s and M48A3s to Israel using C-5 Galaxies, while the remaining 200 units were transported by sea.
I think so this capability can mostly be used when you need it urgently. You know, when you need it like the country or the country who's fighting the war needs all these tanks urgently, so there is no point in going to via the sea and it will take some days to reach it. So I think so then C5 will be the most important tool to get these tanks to the war. So I think so it will be used, but only in the urgent situations. Otherwise, if you consider cost cutting and everything, so the ships are much better.
And even though the C-5 could carry 2 tanks at once, it only carried 1 because of concerns over the airframe. Similarly today, while the C-5s can transport 2 60-ton M1 Abrams tanks at the same time, the sheer weight of these vehicles results in a lot of stress on the airframe, wearing out the airplane prematurely. This is why C-5s only carry 1 Abrams tank at a time, and only if an emergency delivery is required. It's worth noting that back in June of 1989, Fred carried 4 light tanks at once when it performed a world record airdrop. The C-5B airdropped 4 42,000-pound Sheridan tanks and 73 combat-ready troops over Fort Bragg in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
The paratroopers, though, had to wait for the tanks to go first, because scientific research shows that a tank landing on you is directly correlated with ruining an otherwise fine day. The C-5 also has one of the highest operating costs of any aircraft in the US Air Force, at $100,941 per hour.
$100,000
still slightly
per
behind
hour.
the B-2 bomber and the E-4 Night Watch. One of the reasons for this high cost is fuel. Aside from the 125 tons of cargo, the C-5 Galaxy also has to carry fuel, and a lot of it. In fact, Fred's 12 integral wing tanks can hold 51,450 gallons of jet fuel, which is equivalent to 6 railroad tankers.
Ah.
And sometimes that's not even enough, so the aircraft has to be refueled mid-flight.
That's not enough. How
With
much
all
can
that
you
weight,
take?
it makes you wonder, what kind of landing gear can handle the sheer weight of this massive bird? The landing gear of the much heavier Airbus A380 has 22 tires. But the C-5 Galaxy, even though lighter, has an additional 6 tires
What?
for a total of 28. But that's for a good reason. The A380 can only operate out of airports with reinforced runways and taxiways due to its weight. But the C-5 was designed so that it could operate out of all kinds of runways. Fred's 28 tires and their unique design spread out the weight of the airplane over a larger area, which allows it to taxi on unpaved surfaces, including
How much
snow and
engineering
even mud.
goes into it, man?
Yes, surprisingly, mud, or more correctly, wet soil, does not interfere with the functionality of the landing gear, at least in this artificially soaked soil. During testing, it was found that Fred had the most difficulty, that is, requiring the highest thrust only on the first and second passes. After that, the C-5 would have compacted the soil enough to make it easier to taxi. Lockheed even performed similar tests on soil that was covered by 12 to 14 inches of snow. Not surprisingly, the aircraft had no issues taxiing around and even unloading its cargo.
It is very useful.
Finally, the C-5 can also take off from unpaved runways, with most of the runway taking off as well. Several other considerations were taken into account when designing Fred's landing gear. One aspect was the C-5's requirement for a wide center of gravity range, which allowed it to transport mixed loads. Secondly, Fred has a unique ability to kneel to minimum ground clearance, which helps in loading the cargo. As a result of this requirement, having 4 nose tires allowed for the spreading of the weight when loading heavy cargo such as tanks. Additionally, kneeling is especially important, as it can lower the cargo deck to the height of a truck bed.
That
which
was a nice
facilitates
one.
loading and unloading operations.
Kneeling is important.
These special requirements meant that in order to fit the wheels inside the fuselage, the landing gear assembly had to be designed so it could rotate 90 degrees before stowage.
Oh.
In case you're wondering how the tires are changed, you could either jack the whole aircraft up in order to perform maintenance on all the tires and brakes, or you could do it individually, because each set of wheels can also be individually raised for easy access during maintenance. The C-5s were produced in 2 batches. One of the batches was defective to say the least. 81 C-5As were produced between 1968 and 1973, and 50 C-5Bs were produced between 1985 and 1989. The defects surfaced in the mid-1970s, when wing cracks were found in the C-5A fleet.
Oh.
The decision was made to limit the maximum weight on all C-5As to 50,000 pounds. Then 77 C-5As underwent a re-winging program between 1981 and 1987 at a cost of $7.1 billion in 2023 money.
Oh my god.
The redesigned wing featured a newly designed aluminum alloy, which didn't exist when the aircraft was first produced. New wings have a structural service life of over 50,000 hours. The C-5Bs, of course, were already built with new wings and more than 100 additional system modifications that improved reliability over the legacy C-5As. In 1998, the US Air Force decided to further modernize the fleet of C-5s based on a study that showed 80% of the C-5 airframe service life was still remaining.
Oh.
As a result, 52 C-5 Galaxies were upgraded to the C-5M Super Galaxy variant, with the remaining airframes being retired in 2017.
These planes are so large.
The C-5M Super Galaxy featured new avionics, glass cockpit, new autopilot, and most importantly, new engines, the General Electric CF6 engines. The new engines, however, were not new technology. The CF6 engines entered service in 1971. Nevertheless, they had been upgraded over the years and were used extensively on Boeing 767s and 747s. They provide 20% more thrust than the legacy TF-39 engines and were also much quieter. The fleet of Super Galaxy is expected to remain in service at least until 2040.
Wow, what a video it was. And seriously, I didn't have any knowledge about C5, but after watching this video I got to know a lot of things about it. Firstly, it can shift the tank. It can carry that one or two tanks at a time, or basically, but he shifted 4 tanks when there was emergency. Basically, when he is when this aeroplane is in emergency, it can shift the 4 to 5 tanks, and it made the world record too. So that was the very shocking part for me. And yeah, I also got to know that when you fly in the C5, then some your experience will be nice. Sometime it will be hot or very heated in the seat because of the I don't know, some gases or what. It will be heat. And I also got to know about the seats, that it has a backward seats, and which is more safer as compared to the normal seats. So these are the things which we got to know about this, and we also got to know that how powerful it is. And and most importantly, we also got to know that why it is named as after porn star Linda. So these are the very new thing for me, and it was basically my first time when I watched aeroplane video, because we were watching only weapons videos and aircraft videos, but not aeroplane ones. So that was the first new experience for me. Basically, this video was so informative for me, and I got a lot of knowledge about the C5 which I didn't have. So yeah, I really enjoyed this video, and I really liked it.
Yeah, and I think so. Like when I first saw the picture of like this C5 Glowmaster, I was like, okay. Seeing it from the front, I was like, okay, now I understand why it is named after a porn star, because it looked massive, like a huge ass kind of a thing. It felt like, but then it was not that reason. It was because it can take in from both the sides. So even that was very hilarious from all the military men to do that. And also the thing was, like, Linda was their favorite porn star, so they named it after her, and I think so it completely deserved it. So like C5 is one of the most important planes for America, because it carries all the loads. It makes sure that it transports major things. And it was like in one desert storm he was talking about, it only carried 12%. It was only worked in 12%, and it carried about 44% of the load. So that's how important it is. And it is about, like, it is going to last till 2040, and I'm damn sure about it that America will try to find a way to like make sure that it lasts longer, and it also like they'll make a new generation out of it. But this feels something very like big, and it takes about $100,000 to maintain per hour. So how massive this is, and it is like that rich ass porn star. So it looks very nice, and it is very informative. So what do you guys find about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.